So I made a new tool to help you find problems and optimize your Unreal Engine projects. Now, unfortunately, it's only going to work in Unreal Engine 5 onwards, but it's very easy to use. It's basically using the Unreal Editor Utility Widget, as you can see here. So these scripts don't edit anything, but they do have to load stuff to kind of see what's happening. But as a real quick overview, basically we can look into these different areas, and there are different things we can look into under each. As an example of how this could help you, we can look at static meshes in your project, and we can search your entire project for static meshes that have no collision. So we click on that, it generates a list. So all of these assets have no collision, and we can quickly get to them. And as you can see there, collision prims 0. So I'll show you how to get it set up on your PC. Super simple. First off, we need to go to GitHub. So github.com. Up in the top right here, we're going to look for Unreal Engine -tools. And I'll stick a link in the description. If we search for that, roll down a little bit, we're looking for CBgameDev Unreal Engine tools. So we click on that one. Here's the tools I've been working on, and this one specifically is what we're after. If we head to the code button here, click on that. Go to local, and then we go download zip. That's going to download the file we're after. If you extract that file, you're going to get something that looks like this. And if we dip down into that, then we've got the two tools I've made so far, and this is the one we're looking for. Tools, Optimize, Project Scripts. If we go to our project that we want to put the tool into, right click, go new folder, and then make sure that this folder is called Tools, Tools with an S. Right click on him, and we go Show in Explorer, and that's going to bring up this location on our drive. Now we can go back to that folder we extracted earlier on. Tools, Optimize, Project Scripts, dip down into that one, and then this is the one we want to take. Tools, Optimize, Project. If we copy and we paste that into there, you'll see that it instantly goes into our project. And if we click on this folder, we are looking for Tool, Optimize, Project Widget. Right click on that one, and then go Run Editor Utility Widget, and we get to the same place as we were with the other one. It's as easy as that. And now you can start using the tool. So I'll quickly run you through how it works. So here we have the categories. So these are the different areas we can look at: static meshes, skeletal meshes, materials, textures, sounds, and miscellaneous. And then we have the main buttons here, which are going to do the searching. So we can look static meshes. We can look for all static meshes that have no collision. As I showed you before, this generates a list, as you can see here. Cool thing is we can do a few things here. So you can navigate directly to it in the browser. We can double click on it here, and that's going to open up the asset itself, so you can make any changes you need. We can also ignore. I added this because I like the idea of, some things are actually fine having no collision. So you might want to be like ignore, but these are the ones I want to look at. We also have a total number here, so you can get a quick read of how many problems or potential problems there are. So to carry on the examples, we've got static meshes with no LODs. So we click on that. See, we currently have in our project 58 static meshes with no LODs. Moving on to static meshes with X or more materials. No static meshes with 3 or more materials. We have, these guys have 2, so if we look, we can see they've got 2 materials. So that's useful for finding, having lots of material IDs can get expensive, so ideally you have less. And then we have the same kind of idea for UV channels. Skybox, if I remember rightly, has a bunch. So yeah, UV channels 5. So you may want to consider bringing that down. Skeletal meshes, so same idea, we can do skeletal meshes with no LODs. This skeletal mesh has no LODs. Missing physics assets. So physics asset, if you don't know, are these guys here. And then again, for skeletal meshes, we have the X or more materials. So you can move the slider up and down. I think this is probably pretty good in this project. But as we can see, these guys all have 1 material here. Next up, materials. So we've got some good ones here. So using translucency. So we have 9 materials that are using translucency, and that is the blend mode here basically. Translucency is more expensive, so if you can, switch it to masked. We've got using two-sided, so you'd imagine leaves and stuff are two-sided, but maybe there's heat distortion, we could remove it from it, and that's this one here. Missing physical materials on your materials, so this is important because you've got bullet sound effects, footstep sound effects, they all rely on that. That will be, this guy is missing physical material, so it's always good to have filled in. That's more of a problem finding one. List all masked materials, this was a little interesting one I thought about having. So obviously material instances are better, more optimized for your project, and for example you could look through this list and go, oh, maybe M solid could actually parent off base material because they're very similar functionality. Next up we've got textures, so a non-power of 2, so I've got 1 non-power of 2 in my project. And then next up we can do has size. So the idea with this is you can search and then it's going to show you any texture with that size in it. So here we have a 128 by 128 texture, but I mainly made this one for searching for larger textures. So here 2048, we've got 95 2048s in the project, so that's quite a lot. Next up we have sounds, so there's some useful ones here for checking that things are running correctly. So we've got missing sound class asset. Sound class is this one here, and that's going to be things where you can globally set UI effects, that kind of stuff. Missing concurrency settings, so this can be useful for keeping your project optimized. For example, on shooting sounds or impact sounds, you kind of want to have a concurrency limit so it doesn't, we've got a heavy machine gun, it's not blasting through, and that is this setting here. So either this is turned off and you have nothing defaulted, or you don't actually have a concurrency asset in there. Next up, we've got missing attenuation assets. So this is always a good one to catch. Otherwise, if you're doing a multiplayer game, everybody can hear potentially rather than being a local sound. And that's this guy that's missing here. And then last off, we have MISC. So in this one, we've got two different ones here. We've got project redirectors. So if we have a look, this can be quite useful. So again, we can use a little browse thing. We have one redirector in our entire project. Now we can't see that because it's turned off, but if we filter show redirectors, you can see it's just there. And then the final one is the unused project assets. So this one's going to take a little while because it has to load up all the assets in your project to see what references you have. So just be aware of that if you're going to run it, but let's give it a go. So for me, that took about 25 seconds. I cut it so you didn't have to watch. But as you can see, we've got 50 assets that are unused. Now in this case, unused means that there are 0 references. So I right click, and reference viewer, it has none. There are kind of caveats to this, so we'll probably see this widget itself is in this list, exactly. So this widget doesn't have any references, but that doesn't mean it's should be deleted. Okay, so leave it to your discretion. And there we go. That's a kind of overview of all the functionality in it. As you can see, it can be useful for helping you find problems as well as things you can optimize. I hope you found it useful. Let me know if there's anything you think would be interesting to add to it.